The Great Betrayal. The Galactic Council chamber floated in the void between stars, a massive structure made of crystal and light. Inside, representatives from 50 different alien races gathered for the most important vote in galactic history. At the center stood Captain James Miller, Earth's ambassador, his weathered face showing no emotion as he watched his supposed allies prepare to abandon humanity. The Vorn Empire had invaded 3 human colonies in the Outer Rim. These massive, warlike beings stood 12 feet tall, covered in armor-like scales that could deflect most energy weapons. They had given humanity an ultimatum: surrender all colonies and become a slave race or face complete destruction. For 20 years, humans had been loyal members of the Galactic Alliance. They had shared their medical knowledge, helped defend weaker species, and contributed their unique problem-solving abilities to countless diplomatic missions. When the small Kree worlds faced famine, human agricultural experts had saved millions. When the peaceful Dots faced pirates, human forces had protected their trade routes without asking for payment. Now, as humanity faced its darkest hour, Ambassador Tor of the powerful Rex Federation stood to speak. The Rex controlled the largest fleet in known space with ships that could destroy entire moons. Their support could turn any war. "The Rex Federation has decided," Tor announced, his forearms folded in the gesture of finality. "We will not risk war with the Vorn Empire. The humans must handle this matter alone." One by one, other races stood to deliver the same message. The graceful Ilari, who humans had saved from a plague just 5 years ago, looked away in shame as their representative spoke. The Ilari Collective abstains from this conflict. The industrial giants, massive beings who had traded freely with Earth for decades, grumbled their decision through their translator. "Too risky. Giants stay neutral." Even the tiny mice people whose entire civilization existed because human scientists had helped them escape their dying world squeaked their refusal to help. Captain Miller noticed their ambassador couldn't meet his eyes. As the final vote was counted, the result was clear. 48 races would remain neutral. 2 would provide only humanitarian aid to refugees. Not a single military alliance would stand with humanity. The Vorn ambassador, a creature named Grak, laughed. The sound was like grinding metal. "You see, human? You stand alone. Your species is young, weak. You have existed in space for barely a century, while we have conquered for 1,000 years. Surrender now, and some of you may live as servants." Captain Miller stood slowly. The room fell silent. Everyone expected begging, anger, or perhaps tears. Instead, the human smiled. "Ambassador Grak," Miller said, his voice carrying across the chamber. "You say we are young. This is true. You say we are alone. This is now also true. But you say we are weak?" He shook his head. "That is where you are wrong." Miller turned to address the entire council. "For 20 years we have shown you our kindness, our generosity, our desire for peace. But there is something about humanity you have never seen, something we hoped we left buried on our home world. When we are pushed to the edge, when we stand alone against impossible odds, we don't break. We become something else entirely." He pulled out a communication device and spoke a single word that would echo through galactic history. "Fortress." Across human space, the Fortress Protocol activated. Hidden shipyards on asteroids began producing warships. Civilian factories converted to weapons production. Every human colony started building defenses. Most surprisingly, technologies that humans had kept secret began to emerge. Not because they were weapons, but because humans had learned that sharing too much, too fast, made other species dependent rather than strong. "You all choose to walk away," Miller announced to the council. "So be it. Humanity stands alone. And standing alone, we will show the galaxy what our species was forged from, not in the peaceful stars, but in the fires of a world that tried to kill us every day for millions of years. A world where we had to fight for every breath, every meal, every generation of survival." The unexpected arsenal 3 weeks after the council meeting, Vorn invasion fleets appeared at the edges of human space. Commander Grak himself led the assault on Haven Prime, humanity's largest colony outside the solar system. His fleet consisted of 300 warships. each one a kilometer long and bristling with plasma cannons that had destroyed dozens of civilizations. The Vorn expected to find panicked civilians and a few outdated patrol ships. Instead, they found something that would haunt alien military academies for centuries. Captain Lisa Park commanded Haven Prime's defense station. She was a small woman, barely 5 feet tall, but her presence filled the command center. As the Vorn fleet approached, she gave an order that confused her alien observers who were monitoring from safe distances. Release the swarm. From hidden bases on Haven Prime's 3 moons, millions of tiny objects launched into space. Each was no bigger than a basketball, powered by simple chemical thrusters. The Vorn laughed at first. Their shields could stop asteroids. What could these tiny things do? The answer came seconds later. The objects weren't weapons. They were construction drones, reprogrammed with a single purpose. They attached to Vorn shields and began building. Within minutes, each Vorn ship was covered in a growing shell of metal and ceramic, created from materials the drones carried and minerals they stripped from the shields themselves. Humans are builders, Park said, transmitting on all frequencies so every observer could hear. We built cities in deserts, under oceans, on mountains where no life should exist. And now, we build your tombs. The Vorn ships trapped in rapidly growing shells began firing blindly. But their weapons only provided more energy for the drones to convert into construction material. Within an hour, the mighty Vorn fleet was transformed into 300 floating prisons. But this was just the beginning of humanity's revelation. On the mining world of Deep Rock, Vorn ground forces landed expecting to fight human soldiers. Instead, they met something far worse. The humans had spent 3 weeks teaching their mining equipment a new purpose. Massive drilling machines, designed to crack through planetary crusts, erupted from beneath the Vorn formations. Ore processors, built to separate valuable minerals from rock, now separated Vorn soldiers from their weapons with surgical precision. The battle lasted 4 hours. Not a single human soldier fired a shot. The mining equipment, operated remotely by workers who knew every inch of their machines, dismantled the Vorn invasion force like they were just another mineral deposit to be processed. On the agricultural world of Green Valley, the Vorn found their technology failing. The humans had released modified seeds, the same ones they used to terraform dead worlds. But these plants grew in minutes instead of months, fed by Vorn energy weapons. The invaders found themselves trapped in forests that grew around them, vines that consumed their vehicles' power sources, and roots that cracked their armor. Dr. Alan Cooper, the colony's lead scientist, watched from his laboratory as Vorn soldiers struggled against tomato vines that were now strong as steel cables. "We fed the galaxy with our knowledge," he said to his team. "Now we show them that every tool of creation can be a weapon of defense." But the most shocking surprise came at Earth itself. When 20 Vorn dreadnoughts appeared near Mars, ready to strike at humanity's heart, they encountered something impossible. Space itself seemed to bend around Earth. Ships that tried to approach found themselves suddenly moving backward. Weapons fire curved away from the planet. The secret was gravity manipulation, not as a weapon, but as humanity's greatest transportation innovation. For years, humans had been developing gravity drives for faster colony ships. Now they had turned Earth's gravity well into a shield, using the planet's own mass as protection. Admiral Susan White, commanding Earth's defense fleet, sent a message to the Vorn commander. "You thought you were fighting soldiers, but you're fighting engineers, farmers, miners, teachers, doctors, humans who spent their lives creating, now using those same skills to survive. Every peaceful tool we've ever made we can remake for war." The Vorn commander responded with rage. "Impossible. No species can convert civilian technology this quickly." White's response was simple. No species that survived in comfort could. But humans, we evolved on a death world. Every invention we ever made was first a tool for survival. We just remembered how to use them that way. As news of the battle spread across the galaxy, the watching races began to realize their mistake. They hadn't abandoned a weak species. They had forced humanity to remember what it truly was. The turning tide, 6 months into the war, the galaxy watched in stunned silence as humanity did the impossible. Not only had they stopped the Vorn invasion, but they had begun pushing back. And they did it without a single ally, without advanced alien technology, using only human ingenuity and determination. In the Vorn Military Command Center, Supreme General Vrak smashed his fist through a display screen. The fourth one this week. Before him, battle reports showed red markers where green should be. 30% of his invasion force was either destroyed, captured, or trapped. The humans hadn't just defended, they had turned the entire war into a classroom, teaching the galaxy lessons in warfare that no species had imagined. The moment that changed everything came at the Battle of New Tokyo. The colony had been under siege for 2 weeks when something extraordinary happened. The human defenders, outnumbered 50-1, sent a single broadcast on all frequencies. To all ships observing this battle, the message began, spoken by Colonel Tom Bradley. Watch carefully. This is what humanity means when we say we stand alone. Instead of defending the colony, the humans evacuated it. Every man, woman, and child boarded hidden transport ships. Then, as the Vorn forces landed to claim their prize, the humans revealed their true strategy. New Tokyo had been built on a frozen moon, its cities heated by massive fusion reactors. The colonists had spent 2 weeks converting these reactors into something else. The entire moon cracked. Not an explosion, but a controlled transformation. The ice became steam, the rock became lava. In 20 minutes, the moon reshaped itself, swallowing the entire Vorn occupation force. When it cooled and reformed, it had a new surface, unmarked by any trace of invasion. "We will remake entire worlds before we surrender," Bradley announced. "Every human colony is ready to do the same." This was the truth that terrified the galaxy. Humans weren't just fighting. They were willing to sacrifice everything, transform everything, rebuild everything, rather than surrender. They had turned their entire civilization into a weapon. The Rex Federation called an emergency meeting. Ambassador Tor, who had been the first to abandon humanity, now faced his own people's fear. "What have we done?" a Rex senator asked. "If humans can do this alone, what will they do when this war ends?" The answer came from an unexpected source. During a battle near the Spiral Nebula, Vorn forces had captured a human supply ship. They expected to find weapons, soldiers, or at least military supplies. Instead, they found something that confused them. Thousands of packages labeled post-war relief supplies, filled with food, medicine, and construction equipment. The ship's captain, an old woman named Mary Chen, explained when interrogated, "When we win this war, and we will win, the Vorn will need help rebuilding. Their civilians aren't our enemies, so while we fight, we also prepare to help them heal." That's what humans do. We destroy with one hand and prepare to rebuild with the other. This revelation spread across the galaxy faster than light. Humans, standing alone against annihilation, were already planning to help their enemies recover. It was incomprehensible to most species. The small dots people were the first to break. Their ambassador arrived at Earth's orbital station with a simple message. "We were wrong. Humanity doesn't stand alone. The dots stand with humanity. Their fleet was tiny, only 12 ships. But their gesture started something." The mice people came next, bringing not weapons but their expertise in microtechnology. Then the Kree, offering their biological sciences. But humanity's response shocked everyone again. Admiral White met with these new allies and said, "We appreciate your support, but we need you to understand something. We don't need you to fight our war. We've already won it. The Vorn just don't know it yet." She explained humanity's master plan. Every battle, every sacrifice, every transformation had been calculated. Humans had studied the Vorn for 6 months, learned their weaknesses, understood their psychology. The war wasn't about destruction. It was about teaching the Vorn and the galaxy a lesson. "The Vorn believe in strength through conquest," White explained. "We're showing them strength through unity, creativity, and sacrifice. Not to destroy them, but to change them. When this ends, we don't want a defeated enemy. We want a reformed ally." General Vrak received these intelligence reports with growing unease. His species had conquered for 1,000 years using the same tactics: overwhelming force, brutal efficiency, total domination. But humans fought differently. They turned defeats into lessons, sacrifices into statements, civilian tools into military innovations. And most disturbing of all, they were preparing to forgive. The final stand 1 year after the war began, General Vrak himself led the largest fleet in Vorn history toward Earth, 5,000 warships, carrying 3 million soldiers armed with weapons that could crack planets. If humanity's homeworld fell, the war would end. But Earth didn't stand alone anymore. Ships from 15 different species had gathered to defend humanity's birthplace. The council that had abandoned them now sent their fleets, not because humanity asked, but because they had finally understood what they were witnessing. Captain Miller, the same ambassador who had stood alone in the council chamber, now commanded the United Defense Fleet. But his orders to the alien allies surprised them. "Form a corridor," he commanded. "Let the Vorn through," the Rex Admiral protested immediately. "That's madness. We should hit them before they reach Earth," Miller smiled. "Trust humans. We've been preparing for this moment since the war began." As the Vorn fleet approached Earth, they found no resistance. No ships, no orbital defenses, no weapons fire. Just the blue planet spinning peacefully in space. General Vrak was suspicious but ordered the advance. This had to be a trap. When they reached Earth's orbit, a single message played on every frequency, in every language, from every human on the planet speaking in unison. 7 billion voices somehow synchronized. "General Vrak, we invite you to land. Not as conquerors, but as guests. Every weapon on Earth has been deactivated. Every soldier has stood down. We offer you what you've never had. A choice. Take our world by force and rule over ashes and hatred. Or accept our invitation and discover what you've been fighting." Vrak was stunned. This was either the greatest trick in military history or the most insane gesture he'd ever witnessed. His advisors screamed warnings, but something in the human transmission made him pause. Against all military logic, he ordered a single ship to land, with himself aboard. He touched down in what humans called Times Square, in the city of New York. But instead of soldiers or weapons, he found something else. Tables stretched for miles covered with food from every human culture. Millions of humans stood peacefully, watching. Children held flowers. Musicians played instruments. Artists had painted murals showing Vorn and humans working together. An elderly human man approached. He walked with a cane, his body frail, but his eyes held strength Vrak had seen in his greatest warriors. "I'm John Williams," the man said. "I lost my son in your first attack. My daughter died defending New Tokyo." He paused and Vrak tensed, expecting attack. Instead, the man continued. "But I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to ask you a question." "What question?" Vrak growled. "What do you want?" "Not your empire, not your species." "You, Vrak, what do you want?" No one had ever asked him this. For a moment, the supreme general of the greatest military force in the galaxy didn't know how to answer. Williams continued. "You fight because it's all you know. Your species conquers because 1,000 years ago someone hurt you, and you decided never to be weak again. We humans understand. Our history is soaked in blood, too. But we learned something you haven't." "What?" Vrak found himself asking. Strength isn't about standing over others. It's about lifting them up. Power isn't about taking. It's about giving. We could destroy your fleet right now. Yes, even peacefully like this, we have weapons you can't imagine. But instead, we offer you something no one has ever offered the Vorn. Partnership, friendship, a different path. The square fell silent. Billions watched across the galaxy as the massive Vorn general stood before a frail human elder. Then something unprecedented happened. General Vrak's translator struggled with a word it had never needed to process from Vorn language before. "How?" Vrak asked. "How do we change?" William smiled and extended his hand. "Together." The same way humans learned. Together. The image of the Vorn general carefully shaking the human elder's hand became the most famous photograph in galactic history. Not because it ended a war, but because it began something new. In space above, the Vorn fleet received new orders from their general. Orders that used words no Vorn military command had ever contained. Stand down, negotiate, learn. The alien alliance watched in awe as Earth's defenses finally revealed themselves. Not weapons, but shields. Massive planetary shields that could have protected Earth from any assault. Humans could have been invulnerable from the start. Instead, they chose to be vulnerable, to fight. to struggle, to teach. Admiral White broadcast to the galaxy. Humanity stood alone not because we had to, but because we chose to show that standing alone doesn't mean standing apart. It means standing for something, even when no one stands with you. When humanity stands alone, 5 years after the war ended, the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. The Vorn Empire, once the most feared military force in known space, had become humanity's closest ally and the galaxy's primary peacekeeping force. Not through conquest, but through choice. General Vrak, now Ambassador Vrak, stood in the new Galactic Unity Hall built on Earth's moon. Before him, representatives from every known species gathered for a historic moment. But this time, it wasn't about war or abandonment. It was about something unprecedented. The human proposal before us is unusual, the Rex Ambassador Tor admitted. They ask us to dissolve the Galactic Council and replace it with something they call the Unity Network. Captain Miller, now gray-haired but still standing straight, explained. The old council failed because it was based on fear. Fear of conflict, fear of involvement, fear of standing for principles. The Unity Network is different. It says that when any species faces a threat, all species respond. Not because of treaties or obligations, but because we understand a truth humans learned the hard way. We all stand alone, and therefore we must all stand together. The Alari representative raised a concern. But this would mean sharing all technology, all resources, all knowledge freely. No species has ever done this. A young human woman stood. She was Lisa Park's daughter, now Earth's lead diplomat. Humanity has. Starting today, we're releasing every innovation from the war. Our gravity shields, our conversion drones, our terraforming weapons, everything. Not sold, not traded, given, freely. Gasps echoed through the hall. The technologies humanity developed during their isolated war could make them the dominant power in the galaxy. Instead, they were giving it all away. Why? Vrak asked, though he suspected he knew the answer. Because, she replied, standing alone taught us something. Power isn't about what you can keep. It's about what you can give. Strength isn't about being independent. It's about choosing to be interdependent. The vote was called. One by one, species that had once walked away from humanity now walked toward a new future. The Unity Network was approved unanimously, but the ceremony was interrupted by an emergency signal. A new threat had appeared at the galaxy's edge, an unknown species with technology far beyond anything the galaxy had seen. Their message was simple: surrender or be destroyed. The hall fell silent. Everyone looked to humanity, expecting them to lead the defense. But Miller did something unexpected. He stepped back. No, he said. Humanity will not lead this fight. Shock rippled through the assembly. The Rex ambassador stammered, but your strategies, your technologies, Miller smiled, are now yours. All of yours. The Vorn have our military knowledge. The Alari have our medical advances. The Dots have our miniaturization techniques. You don't need humanity to lead. You need to realize what humanity realized. You can stand alone. Ambassador Vrak understood first. You're not abandoning us. You're teaching us the final lesson, Miller confirmed. Every species, every individual must know they can stand alone. Not because they have to, but because they choose to stand for something. And when everyone can stand alone, we can truly stand together. The new threat sent another message, more aggressive. But this time, the response didn't come from Earth. It came from every species simultaneously. The Vorn offered their strength, the Rex their fleets, the Alari their wisdom, the Dots their precision. Even the tiny mice people offered their courage. The unknown invaders, faced with a galaxy that spoke as one while each stood as individuals, sent a final message. What are you? The answer came from every corner of the galaxy, in every language, but with one voice. We are those who stand alone, together. We are those who were abandoned and chose forgiveness. We are those who faced destruction and chose creation. We learned from humanity that standing alone is not a weakness, but a choice. And we choose to stand. The invaders retreated, not from fear of weapons, but from confusion at a galaxy that had transcended the simple dynamics of conquest and submission. Years later, Historians would mark this moment as the birth of true galactic civilization, not when species allied for mutual benefit, but when they learned they could stand alone and chose to stand together anyway. And at the center of it all was humanity's gift to the galaxy, not their technology or their strength, but their truth, that standing alone is the first step to standing for something greater than yourself. The story ends where it began, with humanity standing alone. But now everyone else stood alone too, and in that paradox, they found unity. End of story.